Good day, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are in the world. This is the Nordic Football Podcast. We're back for another week's episode. And this week, we're going to be looking at the European games. My name is Jonathan Fadugba, and I'm joined, as always, by the eager eye in the sky, Steve Wyss. He is the man who has kept his eye on all the European games this week. There's been some that have been on television, which you may have seen for those of you who maybe have TNT, for example. They broadcast a couple of games. But we know that Mr. Meatman Soccer has his ways of finding every game, regardless. So how are you, Steve?
I've had a bit of an interesting week, actually. I've seen most of the games, but Tuesday night was the one where I missed out on the Glimt match because I injured myself on one of my walks in the hills in the Yorkshire Dales. To cut a long story short, thought I'd broken my ankle, ended up in A&E, had to wait 6-7 hours. X-ray came back clear, so it's just a bad sprain. But not what I wanted. I was nearly stuck out on the moors for the night. So kind of crazy times. But I'm looking forward to this. I've got a few rants later on as well about certain teams. You're right, the scheduling is ridiculous. All these games should be on TV now, including Conference League, but they're not. But yeah, I mean, there's been some good results for the teams up in Norway and Sweden. And look, we can still dream of potentially 7 teams in the group stages, mate. So that would be so cool, wasn't it? Going into the autumn and the winter.
Yeah, it might be news for those who are sort of listening to this podcast, but I actually got a text message. Must have been about, I don't know, just before the Glimt game. It's from Mr. Steve himself saying you'll never guess where I am at the moment. And he was stuck in a field with a suspected broken ankle, he said at the time. So
7:57. I look back. I know exactly what time I did it. 7:57. So 3 minutes before kickoff. The Champions League anthem was reverberating around Asmira Stadium. I was meant to get back. I wanted to get back for the start of the game. I completely misjudged the timings. Maybe because I was in a rush.
I was thinking who's gonna live tweet this match because you were gone. But listen, we managed to salvage it, and it's been a really entertaining week, to be fair. So we thought we'd have a little bonus episode, or not bonus, but just a European special. We're going to look at the games, maybe preview 1 or 2 of the weekend's games coming up. But this is mainly going to be looking at European ties because it is a special part of the season, isn't it, Steve? It's a crucial time of the year for these leagues, and maybe you want to explain a bit why it's so important.
I always prefer the qualifying sometimes to the actual group stages and stuff because it means so much to the teams. I mean, for a start, let's talk about the financial implications. You know, £15 million roughly just to qualify for the Champions League group stage now. And if you manage to get through there, then your prize money for individual wins is up to nearly 3 million, I think. And there's 8 matches now that teams are going to play with the revised group stage. Even for Europa League and Conference League, you know, you're looking at decent money going into the pot. Plus, you're getting gate receipts, TV money, exposure, your reputation improves, coefficient improves. Everything's on the line. I mean, it's so easy for these teams in the top 4 or 5 leagues that just qualify automatically. And they don't even have to go through the pain of all this now. But sometimes it's some of the best games. You know, I've watched some fantastic stuff in the last month. You know, I've been watching teams from so many weird countries. And I've been following the journeys, and it's one of my favourite times of the year. It really is. And it's exciting me even more that so many of the teams in Scandinavia have been doing well.
And the teams kind of go for it, don't they, as well? I mean, Conference League-wise, it's probably added a new dimension, hasn't it, to these leagues, potentially? Would you agree with that? You know, the sense that there's an extra competition to play for, and maybe teams who aren't that high on the radar have a chance to sort of participate in Europe, and that's maybe added an extra bit of flavour, would you say?
If you win your domestic league now, you've got a decent chance of making the Conference League because you drop down each level. I mean, for example, the Welsh side, TNS, tonight, I think they're 3-0 up now against a team from Lithuania. The Welsh side could well be in the Conference League group stage. They should be from that point onwards. So, yeah, of course, it's opened the door up to a lot more teams to qualify for these. The Conference League is only going to be 6 league matches, by the way. Europa League and Champions League is going to be 8. We're heading into January for those particular competitions. But yeah, I think everyone now believes they've got more of a chance. You know, like in the past, it would have been impossible for some of these teams to qualify, even for like dropping down and stuff. but it's more realistic now. And, you know, I mean, I've been watching a story of Wisla Krakow in Poland, that second-tier team in Poland. They won the cup last year. They went through on penalties on the last round. It meant so much to the fans. You could just see it. I mean, they've got beat 6-1 tonight. I felt so sorry for them, but I think they were so proud of their team, you know, just to get this far in the competition of the qualifiers. So, yeah, it's great. I mean, I think it's epic. I think it's almost better than the group stages, mate.
Yeah, and there's been some massive games as we just talked about, and teams going for it, and a different dimension. So let's look at the results from this week, Steve. We'll have a little discussion about them as well. There's some games I caught as well myself. It started on Tuesday, where we had what was a fascinating tile while you were stuck in a field somewhere. Bodø Glimt 2, Red Star Belgrade 1 in Champions League qualifying. We'll talk about that in a second. Then, of course, on the Wednesday, we had, there was plenty of games. Midtjylland for those of the Danish persuasion, 2-1 with Slovan Bratislava. Malmö 0, Sparta Prague 2. Disappointing result for the champions of Sweden there at home in what was a massive game for them. And then, Steve, when we look at the Europa League and Conference League games that have just taken place today, we've had the big clash, Sweden versus Norway. Molde against Elfsborg has been won by the Swedes. Molde 0, Elfsborg 1. Got one up on you on the tie there, Steve, which we'll talk about, of course. And elsewhere that's Europa League qualifying, by the way, final round. Conference League qualifying, we've had Brann 2, Astana 0. Great result for Brann there. Maybe 1 foot in the Conference League final in the qualifiers, so in the group stage. Djurgården 1, Maribor 0. And then Häcken 1, Heidenheim 2. And I remember you saying on a recent show that you thought this would be a potential upset for Häcken. So we could have a little discussion on that game as well. It's still all to play for, but the German side taking a 2-1 lead back to Germany, Steve. And I think that's it, isn't there? Was there one other game? No, that's it. The only other ones, maybe it's not really our leagues, but Klaksvik 2, HJK 2. Steve, so let's start with Glimt. You were stuck in a field, so I might take over from you at some point and maybe discuss it a little more. But considering it's your league, you know, did it go how you expected? Was that kind of result you thought might come, or were you surprised by that result as you waited in A&E?
Well, I've been stoned under so much. All I've seen is the goals from the game. I've not seen the highlights. All I saw tweeted was how impressive Glimt were. Like, some prominent accounts were like, this lot play really good football. They're going to be a great addition to the Champions League. You were messaging me and saying 1-0, 2-0. They're so dominant. They're so in control. They're looking so good. And then they concede a goal about 10 minutes from time, which has kept Red Star Belgrade in the tie. And here we are again. It's like Groundhog Day. Dinamo Zagreb a couple of years ago, or last year, I think. Was it last year or 2 years ago? Something like that. Anyway, they took a 1-goal advantage to Croatia and eventually got knocked out after extra time. Is a 1-goal lead enough going to a tough place? Just Google the tunnel for Red Star Belgrade, and it's a frightening looking experience. I mean, I think Glimt are a better team than Red Star now. Personally, I mean, you could debate on that. They're not a bad team. Red Star, their season campaign, are very strong at home. Glimt, for me, if it was, you know, one match on a neutral location, I would certainly back them. But I just wonder if, having played so well, you know, it sounded like it should have been closer to 3-0 rather than 2-1. Is that the goal that sort of keeps Serbian hopes alive? And, you know, they really need to banish the ghost of Dinamo Zagreb and get over the line. I did say on the last episode, I think they will. I've got a gut feeling they finally do it, but it's not going to be without pain. It's not going to be without pain there. They will suffer in that second leg. Have they got enough about themselves to do it? I hope so.
Yeah, I watched this game, and I you know, as you've alluded to there, I didn't, you know, we were obviously in touch with each other, and I was very impressed with what I saw from Glimt, to be honest. They went into the game with their sort of typical attacking line. I think this is the year they got to make it, isn't it? I mean, it's all geared around.
It's now or never, isn't it? It's now or never.
They kind of have to sort of go for it this year. It's a big opportunity, and I think they can probably be maybe slightly disappointed with the result, because they started really well. I felt that they were in complete control. The opening goal, they sort of managed to get their noses in front in the match. It was a bullet header, a lovely finish. So they went 1-0 up. That was from Bjortoft in the 52nd minute, Steve. And then really, I thought what was taking full control of the tie, 62nd minute, Mata scored a brilliant goal. Isaac Mata, curler, left-footed, banged it into the top corner. Well, swerved it, a lovely, beautiful hit. And you thought to yourself at that point, yeah, they're in control of this tie, and they're gonna go through. I felt that they needed maybe a third goal. I thought it was there for the taking at a certain point. They looked, they were wave after wave of attack. Glimt are such an exciting team to watch, I have to say. In direct contrast to Malmö, who we'll speak about in a minute in terms of how they performed. But they're just so free-flowing and beautiful to watch under Knudsen. And it's rare you get to see them, obviously, on the big screen, TV like that. And, well, in England anyway, of course. So you thought to yourself, this is going to be in total control. Maybe they can sneak a third and really take the game to bed. But 75th minute, the Ognjen Mimovic, it was a set piece, back post, no poor marking really, and they let themselves go. That's the crucial goal. Obviously, it's not, away goals have been scrapped now, but I still think the 1-goal lead is going to be difficult, maybe potentially going back to Belgrade. Do you think they can do it?
Yeah, my gut feeling is that they will do it. But, I've just got some stats for you here. Since they returned to European competition in 2021, they've played now 30 matches at home, and they've won 23 of them. They've got a remarkable home advantage in Europe. It's such a tough place for teams to go. 3 draws and 4 defeats. And, I just wonder if they did need another goal. But they're so close now. I'm just looking now. If you make the group stage of the Champions League, you will play 2 teams from each pot 1, 2, 3, and 4. So they would be playing. It's in pot 1. We've got Real Madrid, Man City, Bayern Munich, PSG, Liverpool, Inter Milan. Apparently, Inter Milan's not actually a proper name of a club, by the way. Apparently, it's either Inter. You've got to call them Inter now. I saw some tweet earlier. Anyway, Borussia Dortmund, RB Leipzig, and Barcelona. So 2 of those they would play against 2 of those. That's remarkable. And pot 2 is pretty tasty as well. The likes of Arsenal in there, Milan, Bayer Leverkusen, Atletico de Madrid, Juventus, Benfica. So, yeah, that's so tantalizingly close now. Do you know what I think they've got though, Glimt? They've got a great deal now of a European experience on the big stage, and in a way, I bet Red Star Belgrade do as well. But Red Star have generally just been automatically qualified for either Europa or Champions League, and they nearly lose every game in Europe. Do you know where I'm coming from? Glimt have actually won games in the last 2 or 3 years, got results. I wonder if that's something they can lean on going into the second leg, that they kind of back themselves to do well, and whereas Red Star have just suffered so much. And I wouldn't want to go extra time and penalties, so I think they need to get themselves a draw on the night or better. But this is the time that they need to do it now. And I think if they don't get over the line now, I think it's more of a mental thing rather than a technical and tactical, because I think they are the better team.
What were your thoughts on a certain man who is back, Mr. Zink? Zinkernagel is back. He obviously came off the bench in this one. He did have a chance as well late on, and there was also a big chance for Ho, who missed well, it was a good save in the end, but it looked as if he should have scored it really. But what are your thoughts about Zinkernagel coming back to Glimt just briefly, because that's obviously something we've not really discussed.
Well, he's left Glimt in 2020, I think it was, end of 2020, start of 2021. And he's been around a few clubs, hasn't he? Watford, Forest, 1 appearance for Olympiacos in Greece. And he's done well at Standard Liège and Club Brugge, to be fair, last couple of seasons. I think it's a great addition back, isn't it? He's in elite level. He's top quality. He knows the club. They know what qualities he can bring. Another new signing also came on, Sondre Auckland, who they've signed from Viking. So, they're reinforcing this squad. That looks now like a team that can do something. They're trying to peak for the Champions League qualifiers, and so far they kind of have. I'm quite impressed in the last round in Poland. They managed to get a 1-0 win, which is kind of not really like Glimt, is it? They normally win shootouts, but they showed a decent amount of control there. Zinkernagel coming back can only help them. I just hope they can get a few chances on the break next week and take them. And then that'll soon shut that crowd down in Belgrade. Because if that crowd then gets on top of them, though, then it's one of the hottest atmospheres in European football, isn't it?
Let's have a prediction then. Will they do it?
Yeah, I'm going to say there's always goals usually in Glimt games, though. So I'm thinking 1-1 or 2-2 on the night. It wouldn't shock me if it was 2-1 to Red Star Belgrade. But let's be positive here. Bodø Glimt get a draw on the night and qualify. So
you think it could actually either get a draw, but you could see it going to penalty all the way to penalties?
It could. I mean, if they draw in the 90 minutes, then they're through. So I'm going to in 90 minutes. I'm going to predict a 2-2 draw. But it wouldn't shock me if it ended 2-1 to Red Star. So or 1-0 to Red Star. So I mean, if we go extra time penalties, oh God, imagine that. Imagine penalties for the group stage. 15 million on the line. But it's more than the money, isn't it? Like I feel like it's more than the money for Glimt. I think they were desperate to show themselves on the big stage. Norway hasn't had a team in the Champions League groups for 17 years. That's a long time to wait, isn't it? I think it really would be good to see them at the top table.
Is it really that long? That's incredible.
Yeah, I think only 3 teams in the whole history of Norwegian football have ever qualified. I'm not sure of the 3. Rosenborg will be one of them. I think Vålerenga are probably another. And I wouldn't have a clue what the third one is. I'll have to do some research there. Answers on a postcard, please. It's probably some old club that I've never heard of. Maybe Lyn Oslo or something like that.
Let's move on. You were able to sit on your couch with your swollen leg for the Malmö game. This one, the Sparta Prague match, was a very different outcome and performance, really, wasn't it, from our team? Talk to us about the result and performance.
Honestly, this is one of my rants here, because Malmö really let themselves down. They lost 2-0, and I think they deserve to lose the game, if I'm being honest. 2-0, mate, some of the fans might say that's a bit harsh. The second goal was a late goal, but I think on the night I was so impressed with them against PAOK in the 2 legs, especially in Greece. They were ballsy, they were brave, committed. Henrik Rydström had a brilliant tactical game plan. The players were bang up for it. But I just felt they were so timid here. I mean, they're at home. You need to take a lead wherever you're going, back to Prague in this instance. But right from the first 10 minutes, something wasn't right. Sparta looked a little bit dangerous on the counter-attack. Malmö were not being brave enough. They were choosing a safer pass rather than a riskier one. And they just looked a little bit scared. I'm scared of failure. And I never truly believed they were going to get level. The opening goal was an unfortunate own goal. And if it probably would have got to 0-0 half time. And who knows what happens after that. But once you do fall behind, they need to show a lot more. And everything was wrong about the performance in so many ways. And Sparta Prague, for me, I don't think they're that good. They're nothing special. I think it's a 50-50 tie. It's not a bad draw. They could have drawn someone worse than that. And they haven't made the most of it. 2-0 down, going to Prague, it's game over, innit? They're not turning that around, let's be real. It's just not going to happen. And very disappointed. Just feels like, after all the hard work they've done, they're kind of going out with a whimper now, Jonathan. If anyone from Malmö is listening to this, go out there in Prague next week and actually show some balls. Go down swinging, please, at least, and give it a good go.
Is there not a danger that by doing that they might get battered? I mean, if they haven't been able to do it at home. The second goal was slightly, I suppose it was kind of coming, but that really was a hammer blow to lose 2-0. 1-0 you can maybe turn around. I didn't think Malmö were very good. I didn't think they looked very sprightly. I didn't think they had much energy about them, to be honest. Maybe playing for a draw almost, you could say. But 2-0, second goal, it was a good finish, by the way, as well, wasn't it? A sort of low drive. That makes it look really... And of course, a comment I found interested to see Veljko Berman-Savic, former Malmö man, coming back. And he was the one who put the cross on, I believe, for the opening goal, the own goal, unfortunate own goal there. But he was back on Malmö's soil. But yeah, 2-0, that second goal really is a bit of a killer, isn't it? I mean, that makes it almost impossible to come back from. Do you think? Do you not think they could get battered if they sort of go all out attack in second leg?
Yeah, Rydström has got to look. Henrik Rydström is one of the most highly rated coaches in Europe. He nearly got the Brighton job. And at 1-0 down at halftime, I was thinking, you got to show what you made of it, Henrik. And he's done that before, made tactical adjustments. It didn't happen in this game. He got the 3-4-3 of Sparta Prague, just caused them all sorts of troubles. This guy Haraslin on the left wing kept cutting inside, and he was having a field day at times. And like they didn't do anything to change it. And I expected a lot more. Look, you're right. They can't go to Prague right from minute one and open themselves up. In the second half, they've got to obviously have a go. They need to obviously lead and give Sparta Prague something to think about. If it was a 1-0 lead or a 2-1 lead with 20 minutes to go, then they'll get very nervous. Sparta Prague will at home, and Malmö might be able to take it to extra time. But the second goal is a killer. It's just a pinpoint goal, wasn't it? The keeper, I don't think, could have saved it right in the corner. But they to Sparta's credit, they did look for the second goal on the break because Malmö did open up a bit more. But I mean, Rydström was out tacticked. You don't often say that, do you? I just surprised me in so many ways this game, and I was disappointed. I was really flat because I'm not a Malmö fan by any stretch of the imagination. And many of the times, I'd never want them to actually do that well, but I do want them to make the group stage of the Champions League because I think it's great for the region and to see them get in there. And it was a really flat performance, not good enough.
Yeah, you've been a bit scathing about Malmö for this one. What's your prediction for the replay?
Draw. I don't rate Sparta Prague that highly, to be honest, but I think they'll do enough to go through. They'll control the game. Malmö at some point will have a go, and because when you got nothing to lose and the pressure's on, they will have moments in this game where they look quite good. I'm sure of that. So I think they'll get on the score sheet, but at some point Sparta Prague do have good European experience. They're often in and around the knockout phases of getting beyond the groups as well, and I think it showed a little bit in the first leg. Malmö were a bit snatchy. One bit of criticism I want to give the league is why were Malmö playing a game at the weekend before? You look at some of these other leagues, they let their teams have as many games off as they want, and they fit them into the schedule later in the season. And I know Malmö did have one week off, but they played against Norrköping on the 17th. Why was that match played? And they're due to play Kalmar this weekend. I'm sorry, but with 15 million on the line, when the coefficient of the nation's on the line, they've got to fit these games in a bit later.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and something that maybe the league might take into account. And in France, they're quite flexible with that. Italy as well, sometimes they are. One final point on Sparta Prague. Quite interesting to note, those of you who are eagle-eyed and remember our episode back a few months back when I was in Gothenburg, to where I shall soon be returning, by the way, but more on that to come. The assistant manager, Steve, of Sparta Prague is indeed Jens Bertelascu, former IFK Göteborg manager. He is the assistant to the Danish coach.
Well, that might explain why Sparta seem to have the tactical advantage. He'll know a lot about Malmö and Rydström, perhaps. But they're in by the way, Nanasi's going to move to Strasbourg, isn't he? 10 million deal. Apparently it's been done today. So I don't, they're going to be without their top player, aren't they now? So yeah, it's game over, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Well, maybe they've decided to cash in because I've not seen that news. So that's breaking. If
it's Fabrizio Romano and everything, mate. So yeah, I mean, right. Part of me would love to say, yeah, they've agreed the deal, but he only moves after the second leg. But
well, I don't think that's been announced. As far as
it's not been announced, but I mean, 2 hours ago, here we go. Fabrizio Romano, Strasbourg have just signed all the documents to sign. Oh shit, I was looking at them. They signed someone else, Strasbourg as well. They've signed Mamadou Sarr from Lyon. They're signing everyone, the wrestling club. I'm trying to find it, but it's done. Apparently, I don't know when it's going to be done, but it is done. Yeah,
according to reports, he is actually in France for a medical, so seems like it's quite nearly done. But yeah, we'll talk about Malmö another time in terms of how that impacts the title race. But in your opinion, you think this is done and dusted for them? Let's move on to the other games. Steve, in European qualifying, do you want to just recap your prediction there one more time?
I'm going to go draw, 1-1 draw, second leg. Sparta Prague go through. By the way, Malmö, well, they should do okay in Europa League. They'll get a few results in that.
Yeah, I think Europa League might suit them better. But to be honest, I didn't really expect Malmö to go through in this tie. I don't think
it's the overall run's not bad.
Let me finish, Steve. Let me finish. I don't think they've really looked amazing this season, to be honest, in recent months. So I kind of felt like it was coming in a way. They haven't really been playing with a sprightly kind of energy about them. Only in certain games. I know they've been saving themselves for Europe, but they haven't really in league action at the moment. They're kind of just walking towards the league, aren't they? They're not really firing on all cylinders. And I think without Nanasi, Steve, they're going to win the league. But I think you could argue it's not an amazing vintage Malmö at this point in time. Some of the players, the likes of Haksabanovic haven't quite settled in. Oliver Berg, has he settled in really that well? The rotation of the players. Taha Ali has, I don't think this has been a vintage season for Malmö so far. So, yeah, I have to be honest. I didn't really think they were going to see off Sparta Prague over 2 legs, but I think it was a bit of a whimper, wasn't it? The way they've dealt with that first leg.
Yeah, I think it's disappointing, but I think you're actually right. I think looking at it over the last, they're not, unlike Glimt, you feel like they're trying to peak for these Champions League qualifiers. Malmö have had their good moments, don't get me wrong in it, but they felt a bit short of their best. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, it's just sometimes, look, obviously this transfer comes at a bad time as well. That's not always easy to sort out, is it? But, decent run overall, but I just think they'll look back on that first leg and think, bloody hell, we let ourselves down there.
Yeah, and Glimt are the opposite, really. I think they've looked really exciting, and that's why I think it's that goal is a blow, because they had the game in their grasp, and I think if they don't make it this year, it's going to be a massive blow for the club. Really, they really want it, don't they? But let's move on. You have kept your eagle eye, as I mentioned, on all the games, and on Thursday just played tonight, even Steve. I mean, there was a game yesterday in the Itinerary, by the way, which we won't talk about this week. Rosenborg 4, Lillestrøm 0. That's a big result, really needed for Rosenborg, given everything they've got going on. But let's talk about the big clash, Molde Elfsborg. A lot of talk on this one, Sweden versus Norway. You've watched the match, Steve. Unfortunately, it wasn't televised, so I wasn't able to get hold of it. But what were your thoughts on this one here? It's a bit of a shock win for Elfsborg.
Yeah, Molde 0, Elfsborg 1. And I completely called this game wrong. I fancied Molde to win it. I fancied a lot of goals. There was a lot of people backing the over goals in this game. Elfsborg, for some reason, Elfsborg domestically, their games are full of goals, but in Europe, they've been able to keep it a lot tighter. For whatever reason, that they really seem fired up. I mentioned it on the last episode. They really seem fired up under this new manager, especially in Europe. But I mean, Elfsborg were the better team. Like, believe it or not, that they, I think, can have regrets that they're only won by 1 goal. And again, tactically, I think they were better set up. It's this 3-4-3 again. It caused all sorts of issues to Molde. And I think I mentioned on the last episode, Erling Moon needs to look at his own tactical setup a little bit, because the 3-5-2 doesn't really suit them at the minute. I mean, the 2 strikers as such, Christian Eriksen and Magnus Wolf-Eikrem, they're not actual natural strikers, though. They're like 10s. You know what I'm coming from? And it's about, they need to stop filling square pegs in round holes sort of thing. And Elfsborg took advantage. The front 3 were absolutely lethal. Kwazem, Baidu, Abdullahi just had a field day at times. They got in behind, and they were really well drilled on the break, and they could have had more goals. I think the best player for Molde was the goalkeeper, actually, Possi Adala. Molde had the odd moment or two, but I mean, for a team that were favoured, heavily odds-on favourite to win the first leg, and they have a great home record in Europe as well, by the way. This is the worst home performance I've seen them play in Europe, maybe ever, in the last 2 or 3 years. That includes against the likes of Bayer Leverkusen and some much better teams. Elfsborg were magnificent on the night. It was the worst possible version of Molde. They're still in the tie, though, and I'm not ruling them out, because they can't be any worse than that.
Yeah, you've alluded to it a little bit there, but was this a smash and grab? Because I'm looking at the statistics, 45% possession to Molde's 55%. Elfsborg actually managed more shots on target, 4-3. But I would have thought that this would be a game Elfsborg would be quite cagey and approach it in a cautious manner and maybe look to just even get a draw. So was this a smash and grab? Was it a kind of fully deserved win, as you mentioned there? Or, what were the key factors that determined this sort of upset? And I don't know what the odds were as well, by the way. I'd be interested to know the odds if you have them.
Now, Molde are a short price favourite, around 1.61. just to win in 90 minutes.
What
the
were
goal
Elfsborg?
line was Elfsborg were a big price to win. 10 to not 10 to 1. Sorry, they were 4 to 1 with Bet Victor in the UK
massive.
here. Big price on the money. I never fancied them though. I never would have even considered Elfsborg in this game because Molde I thought would comfortably show their class in the fixture. But it wasn't a smash and grab for me. I think they deserved it. You mentioned it there. Shots on target was a lot more. If we look at the corner count, 11. There were 20 corners in the game, by the way, huge amount, but 11 to 9 in Molde's favour. So Elfsborg had plenty of the corners. Even it depends what you want to class as a dangerous attack. It was only 88 to 76 in Molde's favour. So Elfsborg more than held their own here. I thought they had the better opportunities in general. And they restricted Molde quite well. Just 3 shots on target for Molde at home. Like they were overmatched. It was a tactical battle that the manager won. And, Molde weren't at the races. It wasn't just the tactics. The players didn't seem up for it enough. It's a bit like Malmö the day before. I don't know whether they kind of expected an easier match, but it didn't work out for them. They're lucky to only be 1-0 down, Jonathan.
Incredible, really. Yeah.
Elfsborg are a decent unit, though, now.
I think Elfsborg are looking quite good. They've not quite translated to league form. I guess maybe that's partly because of the amount of games they've got at the moment. But they do have quite a deep squad. They've been able to rotate to a certain extent, haven't they? And you mentioned that Kassem, for example, stepped up today, and he's missed certain games in the past few weeks. It seems like the new manager, who you seem to have taken a fancy to, he's definitely got a bit of a tactical nous about him. If you listen to last week's show, Steve was very gushing in his praise of Oscar Hildmark in more ways than one. And it seems like he's got a bit of a tactical nous about him there. So massive result. Steve, from a Molde point of view, what do you think they need to do, to go away to Sweden and get this done to be able to qualify? Or do you think they might think to themselves, listen, we'll just take Conference League and maybe just ease off? How big do you think they'll take the second leg? Will they really go all out?
Well, part of me was thinking this. I'm like, is Conference League a disaster for Molde? It's probably not. Although they will miss out on some money, but they'll still get a decent paycheck. They're probably more chance of winning matches in Conference League. How do they solve it? They've got a massive problem. They've got to stop these guys getting in behind. These fast attackers of Elfsborg will have plenty of space on the break next week when Molde have to go for it. Molde won't be changing the 3-5-2. They've got to show their technical class. They've got to look after the ball better. They've got to show why they are the supposed favourite of the two. And at some point, Elfsborg might realise where they are. One draw away from the Europa League group stage, 8 matches. They could be drawing teams like, who's in the Europa League pot one? I'm going to have a look at Man United in that. Something like, I don't know. Yeah, Man United are in it, aren't they? They could be getting some really big teams in pot 1, pot 2 for that. Although, again, maybe the pressure's off them a little bit because they know that Conference League at worst, it's a good outcome for Elfsborg, right? They'll get 6 more games. Here we go. Roma, Manchester United, Porto, Rangers. That'd be a nice draw, wouldn't it? Sorry, Scottish fans. Eintracht Frankfurt, Lazio, Spurs, and there's the likes of Lyon are in there as well. Real Sociedad, AZ Alkmaar. So, there's plenty of reward. But I think there's a twist in this tie. I think Molde are not going to go down without a fight.
Who would be the key person to turn it around? Was there anyone from the first leg that you think sort of stood out that should be kept an eye on, or anyone maybe returning? Or might the manager sort of change things around a bit?
None of the outfield players played well, but they're all capable of a lot better. Look, they're going to look to Magnus Wolf-Eikrem. He's the technical magician. He doesn't always last 90 minutes, but he's going to need to have a good game. I think they could maybe do with getting Berisha starting. Berisha came on as a sub in this match. If they get him a little bit fitter, maybe he can be a threat. And they just got to hope that their technical players turn up and actually finish chances, Jonathan. If they get in ahead, early, suddenly the tie becomes level again and it's game on, isn't it? So the first goal is huge here, really. And I just suspect the goalkeeper might need a decent game again.
Yeah, it's a massive game, and hopefully, we'll be able to get all eyes on that one because that's going to be a massive second leg. That's going to be very exciting for both our leagues, really. And if Elfsborg make it through, I think that you said it at the top of the show about how many teams potentially could be in Europe this season. It'd be almost unprecedented since we've done the show, definitely. But for Elfsborg to get in Europa League, I think that'd be a phenomenal achievement, really. Especially when you look at someone like Malmö might have to settle for it. Elfsborg haven't really had many big runs in the league, have they, in the past sort of 10 years?
Just look who they've beaten as well.
To be able to even get to this stage. So,
beat Sheriff. Yeah, they beat Sheriff Tiraspol. They beat Rijeka. Those are decent teams on the European stage. So they've not beaten some of these crap nations from Estonia or somewhere or whatever. Fair play to them. Brilliant. I'm dead impressed with how they played in general since the new manager took over.
Let's move on. Brann 2, Astana 0. I don't know if you had a chance to get your eyes on this one, Steve. Goals from Mura and Finner.
Yeah, Brann win this match 2-0. And, they were a big favourite. They didn't even cover the handicap, actually. I don't think. The handicap was -2, so they pushed on it. But they needed this one, did Brann, because they're against Astana. And I was trying to think of a pun for this one. They need to send... Anyway, I'll come to it a bit later, but they're going to Kazakhstan in the second leg, and that's a long, long way to go. That's worth a big home advantage. So 2-0, is that enough? Maybe it's enough. They can go there and lose by 1 goal and still qualify. But they dominated the game. Astana didn't have many chances, and hopefully in the second leg it'll be on your bike, Astana.
Yeah, it's a long way to go, isn't it, Kazakhstan? Astana's recent form, they won their most recent game 6-1, but I don't know if that's necessarily a massive achievement, to be honest. So, but, European-wise, they've been doing pretty well. So, I think it's, who knows? They've knocked out one or two others in the qualifiers. Not huge teams, if we're being honest, but probably move on from that one, I think. Brann.
Well, I think Brann can do it. Brann, for me, are the far better team. Brann are a really good side, by the way. And it's just the venue, isn't it? Going such a long way from home. And, 6-1, like you said, the last time they played in Kazakhstan against a Romanian side. Brann are better than them, whoever they are, who Endora. They're going to put up a better fight than them. I think they go through. I think they do enough. Just keep it tight. Astana will have to go for it and they'll get chances. Brann, it'd be really good to see Brann in Conference League groups. They're a club that deserves something like that.
Yeah, they are a big club as well. Steve, Djurgården 1, Maribor 0.
Yeah, the game went exactly as I thought, actually. Believe it or not, I've watched all of Maribor's games right from the first qualifying round for them. Don't ask me why, but they're a sort of team who lose away and win at home. The Slovenian outfit. I think Djurgården deserved this one. They might even think they could have got a second goal. But this tie, for me, could go all the way to penalties, extra time penalties. I've got the feeling Djurgården haven't played amazing in this European run. They've just kind of done enough in all their rounds so far. In green got the only goal of the game, 69 minutes. There weren't that many attempts. They generally controlled Maribor quite well. But it's the sort of venue that in the second leg, it could be a tough place to go. It wouldn't surprise me if it went all the way to extra time. I hope Djurgården can do it. It'd be good to see them get in the groups, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they're the sort of team that are very... They're just grinding things out at the moment, aren't they, really, Djurgården? They're not really... Maribor have got good... They've got a proud history in the Champions League, Maribor, in recent sort of 10 years. But... something tells me that they might just be able to eke out a result away from home against Maribor there. So, not the easiest place to go, but Djurgården, they're not a great side, but they just have this way of just eking out results every now.
That's probably not a bad thing.
Having said that, they didn't manage that in the Stockholm derby, by the way, in which they were shot.
Well, they never do, though, do they? We kind of that's a different fixture entirely for them. Maybe this format of sort of just doing what you need to do to go through might suit them in Maribor. Maribor are not amazing. This version of Maribor is not amazing, by the way. I actually think the tougher draw would have been Vojvodina, who Maribor beat on penalties in the last round. So I'm with you. I think they can go there and find a way. whether it takes penalties even to make it the group stage. I think they can do it because they're not a great side, but they've got some tough players, some real bitey players in that squad who you wouldn't mind going to battle with, would you?
No, absolutely. And moving on, we'll see how they get on in Slovenia. Good luck to Diff. It's a tough place to go potentially, but as you say, maybe not a vintage Maribor side at the moment. The kids, they love it. So the tasty taste of Maribor. FC Copenhagen beat Kilmarnock 2-0. Of course, conquerors of Tromsø there, lost to the Danish side, but we won't dwell on that one. Steve, Häcken against Heidenheim. You had a lot to say about this on the pod a few weeks back, about how this could be a potential upset. It's a close one, but it's not quite gone the way you maybe thought it would. It was 1-1 for quite some time, and then second half, 65th minute, a goal from Cienza gave Heidenheim the advantage going into the second leg in Germany.
I don't even get me started here. Like, Heidenheim are probably one of the teams I hate the most in Europe, mate. This team have defied me so much. Look at all them stats and XG stuff from last season. They always second best in nearly every important statistic, but they somehow find a way to get results. And it was the same here. Häcken were the better team on the night. They had the better chances, and Heidenheim have somehow come here and smash and grabbed it. I'm scratching my head with this Heidenheim outfit. They're not even. I mean, half of the Bundesliga qualified for Europe, by the way, this season. They're an interesting story. Come all the way from the 5th tier of German football. But they're not that good. It was a good chance for Häcken. They fell behind to a goal, got back level, and then at 1-1, I thought Häcken had some really big chances. And I don't want to. I hate to criticize. I just think they bottled it. Like, the pressure kind of got to them. They've been scoring goals for fun recently, but when the heat of the moment came on against a better team from a bigger league, it seems like everyone's composure left them in the final third. There was panic. Shots were going over the bar. Wrong decisions were being made, but they still should have had enough to at least draw in the match. And I mean, I look back and I don't know how they've lost it. I'm not ruling them out of the tie because I don't rate Heidenheim at all. I think Heidenheim will go down from the Bundesliga this season, but they're one of them teams. Heidenheim, you almost, for whatever reason, they go beyond the stats. They find ways to get results. Even the eye test, though, you look on the field and you think, how are they doing it? I hate them. I really do. I really would love to see Häcken knock them out, and I'm still hopeful it might happen. But Häcken fans, I imagine, would be very, very frustrated that this was a missed opportunity in the first leg. What
were the odds on this game? Well, you mentioned that maybe you were against them.
Heidenheim were. Sorry, actually, Häcken kicked off the favourite here at 2.3. Heidenheim were the slight favourite in the build-up to the game. I mean, that just shows you, for an Allsvenskan side, to be favourite against a Bundesliga side, even at home, that just shows you how crap Heidenheim are, really. So
the Heidenheim odds were
the outsider on the night. Yeah, Heidenheim in the end, about 2-1. About 2-1.
Wow, that's really interesting. Would you say that you were hiding behind your sofa watching this one?
I was angry. This Heidenheim team have annoyed me. I've probably lost more on this team than any other team in Germany in the last 12 months because they defy everything about form, stats, the lot. They just seem to always take their chances, right? I can't believe it. Like, they just seem to surgically time these counterattacks very, very well and have a knack of finishing the chances. And Häcken have got goals in them, though. I think they can go to Germany in the second leg and they will go down swinging. Unlike some teams, they absolutely will go down swinging. But I expected Häcken to win first leg at home on artificial, and they just bottled it a bit, really. Composure went.
Yeah, goal from Rigard to equalise a Conte opener. Sir Lord Conte, great first name there. The likes of Inusa, Layuni and Yusuf started this one. So we'll see if they can sort of turn things around in the second leg. It's going to be a tough ask of them going to Germany. Of course, the coefficient is significantly higher than the Swedish league. Steve, we're going to wrap it out there because we don't really have time for a preview of the weekend's games. I mean, in our league, in Sweden anyway, I think the game to keep an eye out for certainly is the relegation battle between Halmstad and Västerås. I think that's a huge game, VSK, and potentially maybe Kalmar Malmö as well is a big one, and then the local sort of semi-local derby, Elfsborg IFK Göteborg. But Steve, before we do wrap up, do want to say we do have a bit of sort of somber news that came in the league this week. It's the sad news in terms of a friend of the podcast, of course, who we have featured on this show at the start of the season, the man himself, Steve, who has actually been on the show twice. It's the Mjällby manager, Anders Torstensson, who came out with a statement earlier this week to say he missed the game, he missed the most recent match, and there was sort of rumours about potentially why. He came out and he has put out a statement confirming, which we'll sort of just read. He said, "Most people who read this already know that I am on sick leave, and to avoid further speculation, I would like to announce via this post that I've been provisionally diagnosed with a form of cancer called chronic lymphoblastic leukemia. Despite these very nasty words, I've already come to terms with the fact that there are worse forms of cancer. I feel quite good under the circumstances, even if there have been many tears. I'm going for further investigations and sampling, and there and I'll get more answers. I don't know much now. I have to take this in at first, but now you know. I want to thank the media in advance for allowing me to handle this in peace with my loved ones. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank you all for the love and care I have already received." That is the military man, Anders Torstensson, who we've become quite fond of on this show, haven't we, over the last sort of, year or so, since having him on the show a few seasons ago, Steve. He obviously left his role, came back again, took the club maybe to the top 5 this season. Quite sad news, isn't it? We want to wish him all the best.
It's shocking news. When you told me this, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. Absolutely gutted for him. But as always, he seems to have handled it with very much with a lot of dignity, with just in kind of the down to earth way that Anders Torstensson goes about things. And certainly both of us, I think, will wish him the very best for his recovery. He's a fighter. So, we're right with you, Anders, for this recovery journey. So get well soon, my man.
Yeah, and just want to sort of echo those sentiments, really. A friend of the pod, someone who we've really grown fond of. Steve, I know you. We've even got him on record on Patreon offering you a game of golf. So we would love to hopefully make that happen one day. So fight well, my friend. If you're listening to this show, we'll be supporting you, of course, and hopefully maybe we can make that golf match happen one day in the future. So we're definitely waiting for it with a beer, my friend. So keep fighting, and it's sad news for Mjällby, of course, because they've been having a really good season, haven't they?
He's been you know what? I mean, you've got to give Anders Torstensson a lot of credit, and all the staff there as well. So it's almost the timing of something like this is never good at any stage, but it almost feels cruel in terms of like how they've been doing, that he's not going to be able to see through the season in the capacity he was. And but they're a club that are on the up anyway. He's got great support staff there around him, and I really hope they can finish the season strongly. And but yeah, I was gutted, honestly. This was one of those that just shocked me big time.
Yeah, Anders Torstensson, fight well, my friend. We are all behind you on the Nordic Football Podcast, and we hope to see you back on the dugout very, very soon at Mjällby, a team that we've definitely, I think, Steve, you will definitely agree with this, we've grown a bit of a soft spot for over these past few years.
Massively.
That's going to wrap it up now. I don't know if there's any sort of key games in Norway that you'd advise to keep an eye on, or any juicy tips you might have, but you've got about a minute.
I think the juicy thing we need to mention is a Wyscout blog that's come out on Sverre Nypan, the Rosenborg hotshot gem of a future player, and he had a good week as well. He scored I think a hat trick. I actually completely forgot the game was on against Lillestrøm because I was so focused on the European games. He a hat trick, a brilliant hat trick that he scored there. So it's a Wyscout blog that's on from the Nordic Football Podcast. Do check it out. This is a player that's going to go a long way in the game. At some point, we'll discuss him even more. In terms of fixtures for this round, Glimt, surprisingly, are actually in action against Sarpsborg. The game goes ahead this weekend. I thought they might request a postponement for this one, but they're at home on the Saturday. The Molde are also playing, by the way. I suppose there's only so many you can cancel, isn't there, over the course of these? I slammed the Swedish officials earlier, didn't I? I suppose there's only so many you can cancel. Apart from that, though, there's not really a game that's that exciting. Molde HamKam, probably the most exciting game. I think HamKam are an interesting team as always. I like to follow their progress with interest with Tom Dent involved there.
That'll do for this show. Thanks for tuning in. This European special, we'll be back to recap the second legs, of course, and we'll have plenty more content to come between now and the end of the season as we start to enter the business stage of this 2024 campaign. Steve, get well soon as well. Speak to you soon, and thanks a lot for everything.
Thanks, everyone. Take care, everyone, and see you next time. Goodbye.
And by the way, just a quick shout out. If you haven't checked out Wyscout, we are partners with Wyscout, of course. Check out the website there for Steve's blog on Nypan, which is a great read as always at Wyscout. And you can also find us on Twitter at NordicFootPod.x. And you can email us or the links in the bio, or you can subscribe on YouTube if you want to have it directly to your YouTube channel. So that'll be all.